Hi friends, Max Alash here. On this episode of the Corpus Animus podcast, training think tank coach Brannen and I talk about how to train for the CrossFit Open this year relative to your specific athletic level. Before we get into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button because we're on our road to 35K subscribers. And when we hit that milestone, we're going to give away a Black Zinc Rogue 2.0 barbell. Let us know if you're excited to train for the CrossFit Open in the comments below. That comment is what's going to enter you into the giveaway. Once we reach that 35,000 subscriber milestone, we'll use a random YouTube comment generator on one of these videos where we promoted the giveaway to draw a worldwide winner for that bar. So all you got to do is be subscribed and comment below to enter. Train along some of the best athletes in the world at the sport of CrossFit. To get a free sample week of our current training cycle, head over to trainingthinktank.com/DSGN. If you're on the go and you want to listen to just the audio version, subscribe to the Corpus Animus podcast on your favorite podcast app. Can you talk in that?
Hey.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Microphone testing 1, 2.
3.
Papa, can you hear me?
I have no idea what you're saying.
That's from a song. I don't know what it is. Do you know?
What is it?
I'm not doing it again.
Do it.
I don't know.
Something
I actually
Papa?
thought, I'm going to go take singing lessons at some point. I
Why?
could probably do those. I don't know. I feel like a personal challenge because it would make me really uncomfortable. And I feel like having control of your voice can really help you.
Do you have a favorite singer?
No. Mariah Carey. I could model my voice after her.
Do it. Do it right now, actually. That is a very terrifying thing to me because I know that I can't sing well.
Yeah.
So like if you said, hey, you're going to get fired or you have to sing in front of the entire staff.
What would you do? Well, I thought like if you're at a field and you're doing, I'm not saying I'm going to sing anything, but just having control of voice, range, tone, I actually think it's a skill that could be good for coaching and then also just good for life. Like public speaking is such a tool.
Hey everybody, 4 sprints for time.
Yeah. How much better would it be if you just sung everything that you did?
Entertain the shit out of people while they're training. That's my new goal.
I can see Travis just laughing nonstop.
That's going to be anybody listening. If this is even published, if you want me to sing, you put.
How about you sing the topic of this
comments.
episode so we can get onto it?
Yeah.
No, you do it.
Or I'm fired. Let me pack up my stuff.
I'm out.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Well, we're not singing, but last week we did a podcast where we talked about the changes to the CrossFit season and what that means. And then this week we thought it might be good to follow up with what that means from a training recommendation standpoint. Because now there's, it was almost more simplified last year where it was like everyone does the open and you qualify straight through the open. The sanctionals pretty much meant that it's only built for the elites and there's no real other avenues for most people. And now we have a little bit more structure. That means that the way you approach the season is different relative to your athletic level and what you want to get out of it.
It was definitely more simple last year, but this is much better for the sport because it gives more opportunity to more people. And then obviously now having a full season, we know exactly as coaches, hey, here's how each of the divisions should be training to make sure they're peaking at the right time.
Yeah. Prior to getting into it, maybe just some general recommendations if you want to compete in this sport, being an online sport and having done it for 10 years, I feel like there's a lot of mistakes that a lot of people just make on a regular basis. I'll start with the first is stressing out, setting unrealistic expectations and watching the leaderboard too much.
Yeah. And this, I am guilty of it too. When I was competing, you're always looking at the leaderboard. That's controlling something that's outside of your control. And so one of the things, I know it's like so cliche, but like control the controllables, right? Yeah. So think about how you're going to execute the workout and then giving your best effort each time you attempt it. Yeah. The other thing that I would say too is don't change a bunch during those, now 3 weeks of the open or the 5 weeks that it was before. Everyone then, like I've heard people say, hey, should I try this supplement during this 5 weeks or should I change my diet during this 5 weeks? And then that obviously affects performance, whether good or bad. Yeah. But it's an unknown. You don't know. And then
is that pretty frequent in your opinion? People switching things up right as it all starts?
Yes. I still have people that I would consider elite athletes that have been doing this for multiple years at a real high level that will reach out with like, hey, I'm going to try this out. I'm like, we've been like Hayes in the barn. We've been doing this work. Like you've been preparing yourself for this moment for the last 2 years.
What are some of the most frequent things that come up that people want to start doing?
Change their warm up would be one.
Yeah. I was going to say, cause I mentioned like supplements and that's not even a big one. It is those things like definitely changing someone's warm up or just like even the way that they go about like warming up for certain types of weights in a heavier workout. Like, I'm going to go way above it because then it's going to make that last weight feel lighter. And then maybe they get like some kind of adrenaline dump after doing that.
Yeah. And they haven't done that all year.
Exactly.
Like if that's your warm up strategy and you do like, okay, I like to do a couple reps at 115 for 95 pound thrusters. And I've done that all year. Great. But just because you saw, the demo video of some elite athlete do that, you're like, oh, I saw they did that. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
But that's not the time to be really experimenting, I don't think.
Yeah. And then the big one going back to the supplements on my end, I've had people that literally have like, let's say, I'm going to try sodium bicarbonate because I heard that it helps kind of buffer, quote unquote acid.
Listen to Kyle.
Yeah. But then it's like, if you haven't tried that, there are a lot of like gastrointestinal issues that you can have, or, just maybe you just don't feel comfortable even.
And finding the right dosage, like what works well for your system, how often nutritional strategies change. People will be like, oh, I'm 5 pounds heavy. I'm going to try some intermittent fasting for the next 2 weeks before the open starts. I'm like, no, like the success at an athletic level for pretty much everything is about long-term, sustained, consistent preparation. So like our open peaking cycle is 10 weeks from start until first week, or
Jan 4 through the March 8th week is 9 training weeks into that 10th week.
Yeah. So that is a good starting point. Like you develop habits for 2.5 months, you're going to be a lot more likely to be successful. But the reality is if you want to be successful at a higher and higher level, it's about doing that year in and year out under some sort of consistent guidance structure. It doesn't need to be the same coach the whole time, but just getting coaching, making adjustments, refining your process, figuring out how do you do it. And those radical changes don't happen the second game day approaches. It happens year round. You're constantly tinkering and figuring out what works.
Yeah. So I think the kind of the step one would be, if you're going to make changes or try new things, you have to do that well before you are going into, let's say, stage 1 or any competition that you do.
Yeah. So back to the leaderboard thing, it's important. You got to kind of know, maybe set targets for yourself, but maybe just putting constraints on it. Like, okay, I look at the leaderboard from, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. every day. I'll give myself an hour to kind of check it, and then I'll just ignore it after that. Like little things like that can help you control your focus, your stress management. Setting expectations would be another one. Like, we created divisions in the design. So we have elite, we have RX, we have intermediate, we have masters, and we're trying to build training that's optimized around each one of the dates. And we see on a regular basis, even though it's just this cycle specifically is just, we're in the middle of week 1 right now. We see people try to jump divisions and I'm like, it's not in your best interest to train as if you're going to make the games if you're going to get cut in stage 1. You're better off optimizing for stage 1, doing your best with what you have right now. And then when stage 1 is over in the end of March, you have a whole year to develop your training and get better and try to push yourself into the elite division. But training in the elite division because you hope to be an elite is almost like a conflict in your own capabilities.
Yeah. I always say expectations can be a ruiner of all good things,
especially golf.
That's so true. And as you and I know very well, I think if you set expectations that are incorrect, then obviously you can't enjoy any part of the process. Like even if you do well on one workout and then the next week you bomb, you can't enjoy that first week in the way that you executed or the effort you put in, because now all you're dwelling on is the poor performance. So you have to set some kind of expectation or goals, but I think that you have to be a little bit more realistic about it. And that's very hard as a CrossFitter because everyone sees the best. And like, there was an interview we watched the other day, right? Fraser's like, I only trained 3 days a week or 4 days a week my first year at the games. And it's like,
and he took second. I was like, what?
But you're not Fraser, So I think that we have to, people need to be a little more self-aware, and then also look at their own training, look at the numbers where they're at right now and say, what is a realistic spot that I can get to between now and the open?
Yeah. Yeah. And even if it's not about, cause it is hard to predict with changing workouts and, changing fitness levels even during quarantine, but even just setting expectations on like the process. Like, hey, I'm going to train consistently for the next 10 weeks. I'm going to approach each workout. Am I going to repeat? Am I not going to repeat? How am I going to deal with changes? Because every year there's something that comes out that we weren't thinking about or we weren't prepared for. A new style of workout comes out. That is a skill that you learn how to adapt to changing situations. And I think if you have some sort of process and expectations for how you are going to deal with that type of adversity and that type of change in the way that the structure of the sport is set up, you're just more likely to succeed and enjoy it as opposed to get frustrated by it.
On a similar note, Brannen, you mentioned self-awareness. Do you feel, I'm sure the elites are this way, but do you feel like a lot of the RX and intermediate type athletes are self-aware of like all their numbers and their paces and stuff like that? Are they showing up knowing that, or do they get to a competition like the Open and then they have to do a whole bunch of digging and they're not very clear?
Yeah, I think one of the nice things that we've done in the design is help them become more aware. Like when we're writing the program and then when we do our design TVs, we're telling those people in there, like, here's where you should be at an intermediate level. Here's where you should be at an RX level. On a broad scale, I don't think most people understand where they're at because one, usually even like a decent RX person is just number one in their gym. So they're crushing everyone else. So it's like, I'm the best. But then when you go to a competition, you realize, I mean, there are always hundreds and hundreds of males and females that are just crushing it just like you. Yeah. And, you know, I had a coach that once said, you're never as good as you think you are, but you're never as bad as you think you are. So it goes both ways, right? Like a lot of people like self-deprecate and always think that they're never going to get better. But then there's also those people that always think that they're better than they are. We probably need to be somewhere in between, like be a little bit more like steady state and say, here are the things that I need to get better at and let me make sure that I work on it. So it's kind of to your point, this doesn't answer that question, but I do think this is a big picture thing for those leading into the Open. They need to plan and prepare, but they also need to have some patience, right? And so what I mean by that is make sure that you are identifying, as Chris said, the numbers that you need to, what limitations you have and the numbers that you need to get to. Sometimes it's not going to happen in 9 weeks, but if there's something simple that we can fix, that's what we're trying to do as coaches. The patience side is, I've heard this already. I actually talked to somebody the other day and he was like, I'm ready to crush it all right now. Let's go as hard as we possibly can, but we're still 9 weeks out. So yeah, you need to be doing things hard in that your intention is to get better at everything that you do. But if you're just blowing it out every single day, by the time you get to March 8th or the first week of the Open, most likely you're going to be just completely destroyed unless you're like super resilient, which not many people are.
Yeah. When I did my video for the elite division, I kept reiterating peak at the right time. Now peak is different. Like we'll get into the different timelines. And you asked Brannen this question, but to jump into,
sorry, I didn't really answer.
I may have not made it clear.
I don't think most intermediates and RX know their numbers that well. And I think part of that is the trend in CrossFit over the last years has been a lot about chaos. And the messaging has been, oh, I just do CrossFit. I just do more than everybody else and I do it better. And that's, in a lot of ways, it's just a lie. Like I call bullshit on that from the best of the best, not being honest about the fact that they hire weightlifting coaches that give them progressions. They hire endurance coaches that give them the progressions. Some of the Metcons are just randomized, but they also know their 30 muscle ups for time. They know their AMRAP unbroken handstand push-ups. They have awareness because they're doing so much all the time. Now, if you're not lucky enough to be a full-time athlete, which almost everybody listening to this isn't, then I think having a system of training that is organized and where you keep your data and can reference back to it is important, where some of that is literally just your approach, writing down your results, remembering what you do, having a plan of attack over weeks, having focuses in your training, foci in your training. None of that stuff is most of the time done by people that are a little bit less developed as athletes. But when you start to see somebody who's a professional in any craft, they know what to do. So I just encourage you.
That has to help when a workout comes out, they can look at it
for sure.
And they can, even though they've never done that workout before, they know where they're at in various pieces of it.
For sure. I mean, I think from an execution standpoint, using myself as an example, I'd probably beat a lot of people in workouts just by knowing what I can and can't do and how my system operates, who might be better equipped fitness wise or size wise for the sport. And maybe they're lesser in terms of their experience in the sport. But if they came in and they just had a little bit of guidance in terms of like, how do you approach this workout? How should you do this? Like you'll see a beginner or an intermediate athlete do a workout and then get a 4-minute PR on a retest. And I'm like, that's clearly just a matter of you just not really knowing your system and how to approach stuff. So I think really one of the big goals with self-awareness is figuring out how do you get the most out of your competitive potential today. And then as your competitive potential goes up, you're just going up in your performance capabilities because you already know how to do it. Whereas there's a lot of people that are just, their fitness is up here, but they're performing down here. And the goal with a good training structure is to help kind of close that gap.
You're driving that person up. I think, a coach can help with that, but still the person, the individual needs to know their numbers so that they can identify those limitations and know exactly what they need to be focusing on, especially leading into something like the Open.
Yeah. Some numbers that might be beneficial, like snatch, clean and jerk. That's a pretty obvious one. They're tested very, very frequently.
And to know like what you think you could cycle too, because some workouts may be at 70% of your 1RM and hey, if I do touch and go reps, I'm destroyed in this. But if I can do singles on the 8 seconds, then I can get through these 10 reps at a certain amount of time.
Yeah. I think like little things like what set size of double unders can you do comfortably under fatigue, and what's your like big set if you needed to do a big set, because then it plays a role in a workout. Like think
17.5 with thrusters and double unders, 18.3 with 100 each time.
Sets of hundreds, like knowing how to navigate double unders or strict handstand push-ups or chest to bar pull-ups. So those aren't necessarily like number tracking things. Those are just like self-awareness about the main movements that come out in the Open.
Back to your point though, you talked about elites knowing even if the CrossFit is still chaotic for them or it's like constantly varied, they still know how to pace each one because they have some exposure. We can do that at the intermediate level. Each time you have certain combos come up, take some notes and then have that in like a journal. Like I used to always journal all my workouts, write it on a blog when like you were coaching me. And so that I could always review. I remember like, oh man, chest to bars and thrusters together, since that's a common one. That blew me up. Why was it? Which round? How many chest to bars did I get in before like I really started feeling it? And then I can start kind of figuring out how to pace better for the next time that I do that workout.
Yeah, I think that's just also subjective data analysis.
Yes.
So like we have the numerical data that we would collect on Watt Up and Design if somebody's following Beyond the Whiteboard or any of those very software driven apps. You'll get the numbers. So you can go back and you can see, I did this workout in 4 minutes. But putting comments in there, I did it this way, I broke it up here, I took 20 seconds of rest here. Then you can go back and you can reference your workouts and actually have some sort of context of being like, oh, this is how I approached this workout. This is how I could do it better. So I think it's about the process, process of creating self-awareness, because self-awareness is always changing.
Yeah.
Your fitness is changing, the tests are changing, everything's changing. But if you're always going through the process of trying to understand yourself better at any given moment in any given test, you'll probably know yourself better than other people that are not really going through that process.
Yeah. Here's something I want y'all's opinion on. So one thing I noticed during the Open is that, because I hang out here all the time. And so everybody's who they are all year. The Open comes around, was 5 weeks, now 3. And I imagine it'll be the same this year's. Open comes around and everybody goes from being real friendly and cool. Most of it, some people are exception,
puckered
to
up,
being real serious and like, geez, I don't even want to talk to them today. What y'all's thoughts on that? I'm sure maybe different for everybody or?
Yeah. I mean, I think it comes down to appropriate expectations. Cause I think there are, like people will talk about an elite athlete being an asshole on game day. And like, to me, there is some of that. Like if I showed up at somebody's job and they were like typing on their computer and doing something, and I was like trying to have a happy, fun go lucky conversation with them. And they're like, dude, get the fuck out of here. I'm working. Like, I wouldn't think, oh, he's an asshole. I would think, oh, I'm disrupting their workflow. So when a professional athlete kind of draws those boundaries of like, get the fuck away from me so I can focus, I get it a little bit more.
Yeah. And I guess I don't even mean just during the, them warming up.
You're talking about almost like the 5 weeks.
Yeah.
This is something that I would say, this actually goes back to don't change things. If you just get uptight when it comes down to like the thing that actually matters, most likely that's going to affect your workout in a negative way. Some people can channel all that. And maybe that's where a good like sports performance a mental coach can help. What I would say is if you're going to be that person, which is probably a good thing at some level, like you have to have some focus and intensity, you should do that a couple times, maybe with like, for example, our throwdown workouts. As you lead into the Open, you have a couple where you're really dialing in your focus so that you know exactly what it feels like. Cause I know from my own experience, if I get super tense, it actually blows me up in workouts instead of staying more calm and focusing on the task at hand.
Yeah. And I think that's a self-awareness thing. Like, are you somebody that responds better to like a somatic anxiety that needs that excitement to get after it? Or does that excitement lead you to go so fast in the beginning that you blow up and don't finish? To go back though, now kind of understanding what he's saying is, if you're stressed out over 5 weeks, you're not really enjoying the process. And that, I'd say, is probably not the best way to approach it. Figuring out how to have some fun, even if you are one of those people that needs to get a little bit uptight and take it seriously, draw boundaries on when you kind of like put that hat on. Like when you're like, all right, I'm in get the fuck out of my face mode. And then, you can kind of come out of it and be a normal integrated member of society that can smile. 5 weeks was a really long time to be like that. 3 weeks is still a pretty long time. I mean, it's like a 10th of your year that you're just basically
miserable.
Saying,
why are you doing this?
I know.
At that point,
hate everything. I should question my approach to golf.
It's so dumb. That's what I do for 3 hours while I'm on the course.
Yeah, hate this. All right, so
I think let's
jump into the dates.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. I think that the first place to start with how training should change, or at least how we should inform our athletes on how to train. The first kind of step in my mind is, where are you going to finish? Realistically, like some people may surprise themselves, some people may underperform, but so are you going to make it through the top 10% or not? Yeah. I think let's start with those that that you're not top 10%, but you still have a passion for the open and you want to get better. Where would you start with those people?
Well, I mean, the first thing is we already know that stage 1 has constraints listed out. We know there's a plyo box, pull-up bar, jump rope, dumbbells, barbell, and plates. So some movements are pretty much out. They didn't say a wall, so handstand push-ups are probably out. They didn't say a lane of 25 feet or someplace to run. Yeah. So running and handstand walking is probably out. No rings, so muscle ups are probably out. No ropes, so rope climbs that have been in the age group qualifiers probably out. So some of your focus can be narrowed down in terms of the window, and you should definitely focus your time on that. And it doesn't mean don't do the other skills, because I think if you want to be good at the sport, you should always be working on the things, and they have carryover. Getting better at ring muscle ups will get you better at chest to bar pull-ups and bar muscle ups and toes to bar, because it's working on body lines, gymnastics, grip strength, like all of that stuff becomes helpful. So I'd say that you can narrow your focus in terms of movement selection down a tiny bit, which is good. The other thing is figuring out how to set yourself up so that you're peaking your focus for those things, for the stuff that's going to come out. Basic strength stuff with the barbell. And I'm guessing if they didn't say a rack, that means that you're limited to deadlift, cleans, front squats, or from the ground, snatches. Like that's really all you have from a strength perspective. So getting competent with the barbell. The pull-up bar means toes to bar, pull-ups, chest to bar, pull-ups, bar muscle ups, maybe, but I'm assuming they wouldn't put that in because a lot of home gyms, you can't turn over and so you're limited. So they probably keep that out. And just focus your time on the basics of CrossFit, higher repetition contractions, lighter metcons, some basic strength. That's pretty much, I think, the only thing that would go into figuring that out. And then after that, it's just about getting your process dialed in and being prepared for the unknown. With 3 weeks, does that mean there's more tests every week? We don't really know. But just being prepared for that, having a process. I think doing the throwdown is a great idea to do for people, is just because it gives you like that one time a week. You're going to get a leaderboard. You're going to get a demo of it. It's going to be a very similar process for you to write down, okay, how did I warm up for this? How am I going to approach this? Do it, execute on it, figure out if you're somebody that needs arousal or you need calm, what type of music you want to play. Do you want to do it with people, without people? Figure out if you can get a process for yourself refined. So that way, over the next 12 weeks, you're like, all right, this is how I'm going to approach it.
Doing it with the judge?
Yeah, do it with the judge to get your rep standards done. And if you don't have a judge, reviewing your video, which will oftentimes being real illuminating for people to realize like, oh shit, I missed this many reps. So like I didn't, or those reps don't look good to me.
Or you realize that you just don't move well. Yeah. Maybe that's something that you should work on.
Yeah.
To kind of go back, I think the other thing to think about would be you're then actually peaking for those 3 weeks. If you want to take it seriously, as opposed to, and we'll talk about this, those that are going to make it through, they're not really focused as much on stage 1 and on stage 2. For those that hey, you have 9 weeks, then your true peak is going to be leading into those, that week of March 8th and then through those 3 weeks. And the other thing too is have a thought process of, regardless of if you're going to be competitive or not, are you someone that likes to repeat workouts? So if that is the case, like I want to do it on a Friday and then again on a Monday, then how are you preparing for that beforehand? So that's going to be different than someone that says, hey, I love CrossFit. Someone that's watching our videos right now, but I only want to do it once. Well, the way that you prepare should be slightly different because you're not going to need that maybe to practice that test and then retest a couple of days later and how you feel, how sore you are, how well you're recovering, all that.
Yeah. And information just came out today. The rule book came out as we're about to film this, that the next stage, so after the first stage of the Open, scores are reset for that next one. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if you think mathematically, 10% of whatever, 200,000 entrants on both sides is top 20,000 in the world. Somebody like Travis is not really going to have to worry about that qualification. So not worrying about it, not retesting the workouts, not really putting that much focus on that is okay for him. There's going to be some bubble people that, like maybe I can finish in that top 20,000 and I'd like to get into that next stage where more advanced skills come out. Now you're talking about a little bit more of a balancing act of figuring out like, okay, well, you're still peaking for stage 1 because you got to perform really well, but you got to also be training the movements in stage 2 in case you get there, because you got a pretty quick turnaround if you're an individual athlete. There's only a 2-week window there. Then you go into that stage 2 that is more of an online qualifier, like stage 1 of the games this year, where it's multiple workouts and you hit them. So people that know that they're going to get there kind of fall into 2 camps. One is like, I'm going for a spot at Continental, which is, we had RIP regionals, RIP sanctionals, hello Continentals.
Just let it keep changing.
Yeah, that's what it's called?
Somebody put a post up about that. It's just broken up into continents. I don't know if that's an actual name.
I hope
Chris,
not.
I wish the camera was on Chris's face of disgust right there.
How dare they?
Yeah. So for those people,
let's just say those that are, you're in the top 10%.
Yeah. You're in the top 10%. Let's say you're in the top 10%, but you also then know you're not making it to a continental.
Yeah.
Now that's your peaking date.
Yes.
And you're having to get ready for a couple maximal effort tests over the course of 4 or 5 days where maybe you can repeat them, or maybe you're not volume tolerant enough to repeat them, where you might just have to do like 1 per day and just, that just is what it is because you can't take that type of intensity.
I would say if they're like the stage 1 workouts from the games, it's going to be very hard for most people to try to repeat. I mean, other than
and
like
they might not allow it because you couldn't do it in the games.
Exactly.
This year. You had to do it on specific times.
Yeah. Like, so they had a time zone, like, hey, if you're here, you have to do it within these 2 hours or something. That would be definitely tough. But I do think for these people, then they have to start thinking about the movements that will come out in stage 2 that will not come out in stage 1 and start practicing those right away because it's a fast turnaround. Stage 1, a week basically, and then stage 2.
Yeah.
And if you're not practicing things like you said, high power rowing or even any kind of rowing, longer intervals, whatever it may be, legless rope climb, strict muscle ups, ring muscle ups, running may come out if they do it like stage 1, heavier barbells, or maybe just there's 5 workouts in 3 days and you have to kind of handle the volume. So there are all of those things now we're adding into the mix for those top 10%.
Yeah. So I think that's really it, is for that group of people that's going in through those 2 qualifiers. And then, I mean, if you're going to the games, you're kind of in a different category if that's kind of your target. And I think most of those people would have guidance, but if you're trying to get to that next regional or the continental,
the in-person competitions,
if you're somebody that is unsure, you're kind of on the bubble and your major focus is just to make it to one of those, then you don't really need to put too much focus on that May date, because once you qualify, you have enough time to build a training structure to kind of get you ready for the in-person, to get you ready for swimming and strongman. And I think it makes sense to prioritize your training for most people to either as individuals to prepare for stage 1 at March 8th, or prepare for the second qualifier, which is beginning of April. I think April 11th is the exact start of that competition date. And then from there, you kind of build your training structure. I think that's pretty much everything I think we can get out for individual athletes.
Yes. I would just kind of go back again for those top 10%. You're doing the same thing that we talked about earlier of identifying your limitations earlier on. So now that you have all this time starting in January, start thinking about the things that are going to come out. Like if you know, no matter what comes out in stage 1, the basic CrossFit stuff, I'm definitely going to be top 10%. And since now we know the score's reset, you need to start thinking again about, I'm not very good at legless rope climbs or high volume muscle ups or freestanding handstand holds, since now maybe that comes out. Make sure you're layering that into your program. And again, one of the nice things we're doing in the design is we're already doing that. Like we have a plan in place for every single division to make sure that they're covering their bases on the things that are going to come out.
Yeah. And I think there's kind of 2 ways to attack individual weaknesses. One is kind of have a daily routine. It could be a morning routine or it could be a warm up where you just touch those skills. Very low intensity, very low volume every single day and just build competence, or have a progression built out for each one of those skills that you fit within the week. So you go to your classes, you do handstand push-ups in your classes on a Monday, but that's a major priority for you. Then after Friday, you do another handstand push-up progression. You just do it every week. So you get a little bit of extra exposure on kind of the areas that you're a little bit weaker or that you're stronger in, that you want to make sure are super dialed in and polished for when game day comes and you can actually take advantage of the global leaderboard.
Real quick, for people who are just regular athletes, they're not going to go on to, I mean, they're RX competitive. They got all the skills, but they're not necessarily like going to try to get in the regional.
So we'll call it stage 2, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you suggest for that group on repeating or not? Repeating workouts?
In stage 1.
Yes.
Those that you know for sure will get to stage 2.
Yeah.
That won't
get.
Won't get to semifinals.
Won't get to the in-person.
Okay. Stage 1's the end of their journey.
Oh, stage 1 is the end of their journey.
Like they wouldn't be RX athletes then. That'd be top 10%. It would be the next stage, I think. They were not trying to get to semifinals. Yeah. Yeah, those people.
I'll figure these changes out one day.
I mean, I always put that up to the athlete of like, what do you want to practice? You know, so because the nice thing is with this season, there are still going to be other competitions in the fall that they want to do. Like most people that do the sport, they want to go out and experience the sport and do a Wadapalooza or others like that. And so for those qualifiers, they may have to repeat just to get into maybe a scaled or intermediate division. So if they want to practice that now, then we'll talk about that and prepare and plan for it. For others though, and there are these athletes that I have that I just do the open for fun and I have other goals in mind. I'm going to do it once. And so the point of me saying that is I ask them beforehand and then have a plan in place for their training that accommodates whatever goal they have during the open.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's about setting clear expectations. If you are somebody that is going into the open for fun, for the experience, for some competitive push to have some focus in your training, repeating doesn't really seem to make that much of a positive benefit. You'll just end up beating yourself up. If you're somebody that's actually going into the open with the idea that you're trying to become a better online qualifier style athlete, repeating is a real important skill that you need to have. And it's a tough emotional challenge to sell out, do everything that you can, finish a workout, the discomfort, the pain, you're laying down on the ground. You're like, God, I just gave everything I had. And then convince yourself that you can do it again, but better and faster, knowing how much it hurt the first time. Yeah. There's a whole emotional process that goes to that. And if you want to practice that, then I think you should repeat. If you've already practiced that and you're already at a different stage of your competitive nature and you're just a coach and you like to do it to beat the people in your gym and have some fun and talk some shit, then I just don't know if that's really necessary. I think you just end up beating yourself up for no reason. Like for an extra 30 places on the leaderboard or 50 or even 100 places on the leaderboard just doesn't really seem to make that much of a difference.
I agree with you. Let's talk about Masters because I think this is where I'm excited writing it in the design. They have a completely different plan for those that know they're going past stage 1 because they're going to have 5 weeks of training after stage 1 until stage 2. And for them, there is no stage 3. It's just on to the games, right? Yeah. So we heard now with the rule book, there are 20 athletes that they're going to take male, female from each of the age divisions. Yeah. So now with kind of clear instructions of this is where you need to be, we can come up with a game plan of what the next 9 weeks looks like going into stage 1, and then what a 5-week train up will look like into stage 2. So what would you suggest for Masters athletes?
Well, I think the better thing, since you're writing it,
Okay.
is for you to talk about what yours is going to suggest.
I like it. Well, thank you very much.
The stage is yours.
Make sure you bring your mask when you go into Denny's breakfast. That's step one.
Wow.
Oh, man.
We'll bring the wheelchair.
In spite of me being a master's athlete now, we're going to have a bunch of master's athletes that are like, I didn't want to mess with Training Think Tank. All they do is shit talk old people.
You know, in the water cooler,
the decay is real.
they still are making fun of you. I don't know if you saw it the other day. Someone said, Max thinks we're all decaying.
I know. I commented on it. And I've been called out on it so many times that now I want to change the language that I use.
Can we make a shirt for the masters that says decay isn't a choice?
I was going to rename my decay process graging, which is graceful aging.
That's a good way to put it.
I hate it.
That's positive.
Get rid of
a positive spin on everything.
A positive spin on the decay.
Yeah. So I think you still have to ask a question to yourself if you're a master's athlete. Is it realistic for me to get past stage one? So that's still the same step. Is it like for the individuals, top 10%? Now for us as masters, not me, but you and the masters. Yeah. Is it, or it's not 10% for them, but if it's 400 athletes or 500, I don't even know if we have an actual number.
Yeah, that's
yet.
what I was just going to look.
Okay.
I thought that you go ahead and finish talking.
So
if I find
Max can pull that up because we haven't read through. We're doing this the day that the
10%.
10%. Okay.
Yeah, still
awesome.
a fair bit number of athletes.
So it's definitely much better than in the past with like the age group qualifier. So top 10%. Is that you? Can you make it through without having to repeat? And if the answer to that is yes, then my suggestion for all those people that want to be competitive in stage two is right away now they're thinking about the things that they need to make sure that they're good at in stage two. And we know that from years past age group qualifiers, likely what some of it's going to look like, because there are biases and more high skill movements, like now rope climbs come out, or there has been some like high power row work or some other things that you wouldn't see in a normal open workout.
Yeah.
For those that aren't going to make it, then the question still is it a practice run for you for other qualifiers? Do you want to repeat?
Yeah.
And if it is, then I would always say, yes, that's totally fine. Let's plan for that. For most of them, just like you talked about with those that wouldn't make it through and are just doing it for fun or just as like a basic practice, you probably shouldn't do it twice in the first stage if you really aren't trying to get through, because
the scores are resetting anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then leading into from stage one to stage two, I think the way that you would look at that is the first thing that I'm doing is kind of trying to rebuild everything that happened over the open. Yeah. For masters athletes, whether you want to like this or not, I think training hard has a little bit more wear and tear than maybe the 20-year-old, right? Yeah. And so if they go through 3 weeks and they have to train really harder, those that have to repeat to make top 10%, you probably need to take some time to pull back and again, being self-aware, kind of self-diagnose the issues that you need to deal with. My shoulder's a little achy, my wrist's a little achy, my hip, my knee, and make sure you address those that first week or two leading into stage two. So that's your time to make sure that you're rebuilding your body and feeling good. The second thing that I would do is assess what happened in stage one. And if there's anything that may have come out in stage one that you did poorly, that possibly like a burpee, for example, or a box jump that may come out again in stage two, start thinking about ways that you can get better at that. And in that time, the hay's really in the barn, like you said earlier, but movement efficiency or movement economy can change over a couple of weeks. And I don't mean necessarily like changing your squat position, but I've been doing all my chest bars with a narrow grip. I'm going to just play around with opening it up by 2 inches and see if that speeds them up or makes them easier. Yeah. And that's just like a silly example. Yeah. Or the way that I'm doing my light power snatches, I'm bringing it all the way into my hip and then muscle snatching it from there. What if I just barely touched my hip or didn't touch my hip at all? Is that going to make it easier and faster for me? So there are ways that we can kind of start improving your ability to do a certain task without necessarily improving your capacity in that, that workout. Yeah. Those are the things that I would initially start thinking about. And then honestly, if you're making it and you want to make it to the games, you probably need some direction from a coach or be in something like the design so that they can build out a template for you those last few weeks that taper you correctly into stage two so that you can crush those workouts. Yeah, I think that's kind of the important thing with a master's athlete is you only have so many internal, hormonal, and even personal time resources that you can dedicate to training and getting after training. So burning them in the open doesn't really seem to make much sense. It's 3 weeks. If you're pretty
pretty confident you're going to make it through the top 10%. You want to kind of go in there with the mindset that you're going to attack those really aggressively, but you're going to take a kind of relaxed approach through that. Try to get through there as unscathed as possible.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to get a tweak in stage 1 and you don't want to, and you can't control that. I feel like, and if you worry about it, you're more likely to make it happen, but just keeping that in mind, knowing, okay, the real leaderboard is sorted in the second stage. So figuring out a taper, because having an open structure where it's 3 weeks, if it's 3 tests or multiple tests, they're still spread out by a week at a time, right? The deadline is generally Monday. Next workouts come out on Thursday. Got a ton of rest between. That format is much more slow and relaxed and deliberate and gives you time. The next stage, you're talking about more of an in-person feel, multiple workouts, day constraints of like 4 days to do 4 workouts or something like that. That's where you really want to have as much internal energy hormones as possible. And doing that with an appropriate peak or taper generally will be helpful. So you almost kind of think of it like you finish stage 1, you do a little bit of a deload, you get a couple weeks of really hard training in, and then you get a nice little strong taper leading into that competition time. And where you work on that kind of optimization of your process, your mind, your warm-ups, your cool downs, being self-aware enough to know if you get 5 workouts, how do you organize them? How do you pick which one goes first, second, third, fourth, fifth? How do you do that? Which I think a lot of it is just being in a culture or being in a mind state for the whole time leading up, getting more aware of how you should approach it.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say for stage 1, for the masters that are kind of unsure and on the bubble, those are the people that really need to dial in their pacing strategies beforehand, and not, and I say this because I've had athletes in the past that just like the first attempt, I'm just going to go after it and then I'll dial it in. So you don't have to repeat. I think it's important for them to say, this is exactly the way that I want to pace this. This is how I'm going to do it. This is my kick at the end, so that you can do it once. And then, like you said, be able to recover going into stage 2 and let that be the focus for you.
We did this whole conversation about masters and we were going to say age group, because this also includes the teens. And it's really the same process for teens. For sure. They don't have the same energy management issues because generally they can full of
do
energy.
A million things.
But same process. I think you get through the open with as little damage on your system as possible. Take a couple days of break or deload where you kind of just work on movement patterns, tweaks, getting some, using the data of that previous 3 weeks of competition to see if you need to prioritize, because the leaderboard then self-selects and you can then look at it and be like, wow, according to these top 500 people, I'm really weak. I need to prioritize strength for the next couple of weeks. And you can kind of go through that review process, build some training, taper, and then hit it hard.
What about their TikTok? Should they take a break or increase activity?
Nah, man, keep filming.
Yeah, my brother's 40 and he sends me TikTok videos.
That he does?
Yeah.
What are they?
Of just stupid shit. Stupid shit I can't say on this damn camera.
I need to find them.
I'll send them to you. Yeah, it's good stuff. They make me laugh, but they just laugh because
is he like TikTok famous now?
No, they're not his TikTok videos.
That's what I asked.
No. He's sending me videos from TikTok. Otherwise, I wouldn't even know what TikTok was. Is it like Vine? Is Vine and TikTok like the same thing?
TikTok started as this app called Musical.ly, and basically they have there's songs built into it. You could search a wide range of most popular songs, and then what it evolved into was people doing dances. I don't know. I'm not on there. Yeah. But it looks like from the viral things.
Chris is like, I don't watch it.
Now,
I really couldn't tell you.
Now but people are doing like jokes and stuff on there too.
And then some Vine type stuff. Yeah. But it seems to be that it's mostly dances. I don't know. Yeah. Leave in the comments if you know.
Yeah. Could you imagine like you're sitting down and you're like, oh, I'm going to create this thing on a phone where you take pictures and you can put a caption up there. And then in 15 years, it's going to govern how the world works. Yeah. So like, what? How does this work?
Billions of dollars in those industries for sure.
Anyways.
So then the last thing would be team, since we have a team here on site.
Oh yeah.
What's the structure in your mind for the team on site? And I think that can kind of, govern others that are listening.
Yeah. So the individuals have to still do the open. And then in the team online qualifier, which is, I think 1 week before the Masters, you want to pull the date up here? That's the wrong one. That's the rule book.
There we go.
Man, look at that.
Wow.
Look at the navigation speed of this man.
Wow, they changed it.
Yeah, they did.
Look at that.
No, that's the wrong.
Oh, that's open.crossfit.com. Yeah, so
works,
The dates are different for the team. The team qualifier.
The individual training is being done right now, and we're dedicating 1 day a week with all 4 athletes. And then when the other athletes can get together, they're practicing the synchronization and like waterfall style or barbell cycling transitions, because that type of training focus is important if the second stage is. So what are the dates here?
So teams week of April 19th.
Yeah. So that's it. You're basically getting a month in between the end of the Open to the quarterfinals for teams. We heard from Castro, and all the details aren't out, but that the structure of that will be very similar to the team series. So team series sometimes has workouts where it's like double Jackie, where you do Jackie and you tag me and then I do Jackie.
So it's really an individual workout, but fast.
And then they have other workouts where it's you doing like 50 synchro toes to bar, 50 synchro dumbbell power snatches. That's a totally different structure. Then you have like 1 rep maxes with time constraints. So practicing all of those skills, I feel like the primary priority for that is from the end of stage 1, March 22nd until April 19th is when you basically build as much of the training as possible into optimization of the team flow.
Yeah.
It's hard to sync up for most people multiple times per week in training. And there's still individual needs that people have to get through.
Right.
They said top 25% of teams. So a lot of teams are making it through.
It's a big chunk.
Yeah. But there still could be some, like a member on your team that's really fit that can't do handstand push-ups, for example, or is just really not good at burpees. And if they're not doing those things and that one person gets exposed in the Open, could potentially push you far enough down on the leaderboard that you can't get through. So just big picture is a little bit more focus on individual priorities to get your team members as fit as possible individually, with some focus, maybe like 80-20, 20% of your focus and time on team dynamics, team development, all of that type of stuff. And then after you get through stage 1, that kind of flips where it's like 20% individual focus, 80% team. Now, if you have a team where everybody's already super fit and is a superstar, those percentage
easy.
Dynamics don't really matter that much, but that's what we've come to on site with our team. And our team is also a little bit unique in that all of them have been competing for almost 10 years in the sport,
and
they're
have
a little
other
bit older.
focuses too.
Yeah, they're coaches. So it's a little bit more of a passion project, but that's how we're going to kind of go after the structure.
Yeah, I think for most really good athletes, they don't need to spend a ton of time working on the synchro and all that. They can dial that in pretty fast. That's not to say some teams do. Like some people are just really bad at that stuff. But like for our training think tank team, they all like in one session dial that in. They know their calls and all that stuff. The one thing that I would say for people that are thinking about doing team is the dynamic of the speed at which you have to go in some workouts is much different than a 20-minute AMRAP by yourself. So maybe thinking about that in your training a little bit more, like you gave the Jackie example. Not too often do you see something that's as fast as Jackie in the individual Open.
19.5 would maybe be the one workout I can think of.
Something that's short that they've had a couple of times.
Is that the row
15.5.
That's what I was thinking, the row thruster.
But you're going to see that probably 2 or 3 times in a team competition where, or even if it's a longer workout, I think about like Wadapalooza had the row where people had to like basically men were pulling 130s back and forth. Yeah. That's a totally different training structure than most individuals are working through. So that's just one thing to think about, a little bit more high power work with recovery in between.
Yeah. So that's all the divisions, right? We got the individuals. We did the individuals that weren't going to qualify through. We did the individuals that are planning to qualify through. We did the masters who have a different date, who are also the teens. Then we did teams. We got everyone covered.
Talked about TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, we did.
Mr. Chris.
Y'all want to try to cash in on this quote Rich and Matt drama real quick and get our views and our likes up?
I was really disappointed
we could just
that
cash in on this fake ass drama.
Yeah.
I was disappointed that they said that we're good. I get it, but it's more fun for the sport.
Come on, man. That's not going to get any clicks.
Look,
that's a boring take.
This is what I'm saying. They should have just battled each other out, because every other sport that has that battle, it just boost the viewership. So it would have been awesome. And then Rich comes back as an individual and says, I want to compete against you.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I loved it. I did. The one thing that I could potentially add that maybe causes drama is
no, don't do it. Let's not be these people.
Fuck it. You told me to be that person, and then you told me.
No, I was making fun of these people cashing it. All these little channels getting the views up.
I All right, good.
Yeah, I
I'll
didn't mean
keep it
for us
in.
to turn into that.
They're both amazingly fit, and I wish I had that level.
Yeah. I hope they keep drama and fighting.
Yeah.
I find it funny.
Wouldn't it be fun to just see them go
Castro's
head to
egging
head
it
though
on.
in a couple workouts?
Yeah.
I would love that.
Or a
something
fight.
like that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
That was my favorite part of the whole thing.
What?
When Frazier was like, if you want to fight, I'll fight. Just in the middle of his, yeah.
Oh
I
man,
was
we
like,
should do a.
wow.
You know how it was like celebrity death match back in the day? We should
Yeah.
do a CrossFit death match.
We could sit. You mean like a clay animation?
Yeah, no. Let's just talk about who's going to win.
I'd recruit Chandler.
Yeah. Oh.
I mean, deathmatch. They actually died.
Of all, okay, they don't die, but like
Celebrity deathmatch?
Yeah.
People got killed?
It was clay animation.
they would like cut them in half and stuff.
Yeah, it'd be like
don't
Marilyn
remember
Manson versus like Hanson. Or something.
Yeah, Hanson guys are like boom.
Yeah.
All
And another
right.
episode of shows that wouldn't work today.
You know what we did the other day? Actually, Kyle and Mia were at our house, and we were like, "All right, of all the coaches, who would you least want to fight, and who would you want to fight the most?" I'm not going to say who I said.
Who
But
was least want to fight?
you won for no one wants to fight you.
I think I'd want to fight. Oh, what? Fight the most? Like you're guaranteed to win?
Like you're not going to be afraid to fight that person.
Becky?
Then who are you the most?
Me? Like, come on, Becky.
She probably fuck you up at first, but I mean, then just physics would.
She's
take
got the
over.
pepper spray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this
Well,
conversation.
hold on. Who did you want to
devolved.
fight the most?
I'm not saying that. I just said of all the people, no one would want to fight Max because he knows how to grapple, and he's also just bigger and more powerful than everyone.
Yeah. Well, I hope no one picked me because I got a strategy.
Poke the eyes out. Kick you in the balls.
Nope. Just fart on them. Fart around.
I'm gonna bring in a big tournament bracket, and then we'll have
Just random seedings.
Yeah, you're number one, and
got
then we'll
the
have
seed.
whoever number 12 is, or
Who
however
would be
many-
the second seed?
I don't know. I'll randomly draw from there. Really.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like it.
All right.
down.
Follow Brannen Dorman at Brannen Dorman _TTT
For
on
no post.
Instagram. You won't get anything at all, but
Sorry.
enjoy.
And mine's deleted for now.
It's deleted?
Well, it's
Or
archived.
Yeah. So you can't even find your name now?
No, you can find my name. You just
Okay.
can't see any posts.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Taking a sabbatical.
Yeah.
Best for everybody.
Sick of hearing your shit. All right. Thanks for listening.